could see what I see, our community and unity, no frustration from brutality, with our black nation a reality.
This is my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, it's my perspective.
To the New African Perspective, the show that is dedicated to the liberation of New African people. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy, but as always, I'm never by myself, not in this space, y'all, because I always got my back. And when I say I got my back, I'm talking about they got my back. And these are none other than the beautiful, the powerful, the strong, intelligent President and Vice President of the Republic of New Africa, and they are none other than
Mama Ayo, free the land.
That's right. And we are part of something called the New African Independence Movement, more specifically, the Republic of New Africa. And that's where we advocate, struggle, and trying our damnness to bring about an independent black nation. So we want nationhood, independence, reparations, and all of those great things, wonderful things that you add up and you gain actual freedom, y'all. But, you know, we've been going over a lot of great documents, a lot of great principles that make up, you know, our ideology in the Republic of New Africa and the New African Independence Movement. Last week, we talked about why we capitalized the W in we and used the I as small, and we've been going over the New African Creed. But there's this document called the Declaration of Independence, the Code of Umoja. And within that, they outline the aims of the revolution. What's that all about?
Well, you know, our Declaration of Independence is stating the premise of the reason why we are saying we have the right to being independent. And the aims of the revolution is like a document within a document, right? That can always go back to assist in making sure that we stay on course in terms of what our goals and aspirations are, what our founding mothers and fathers wrote to be our goals and aspirations, and what we actually have taken an oath to uphold, right? And really and truly, as these next couple of shows, as we go through these particular aims of revolution, we'll see how holistic these aims are and how they're right on target and very specific in terms of what needs to happen for us to reach our ultimate goal of 100% liberation. Yet within the aims and within this Declaration of Independence, it's giving us a broader scope of what it is that we're supposed to be reconnecting to, which is nature, which is us being universal beings, our expansion as humans on the planet, right? So, and that not putting a cap on that. So it's to me, the document is profound, and as you dig deep, each line is extremely broad, and it takes a lot of work to accomplish, right? So it's just briefly go over. You got to go into each one and really, really think about what it's going to take to actualize it, along with the founding documents and plans that we already have. We got to add our brilliance and our infiniteness on top of it so that we can actually bring it into fruition. So it's phenomenal. I yield back.
That's what's up. You had any comments on this Declaration of Independence, more specifically the aims of the revolution, Mama Ayo?
Just to veggie back off of President Sall, of course, because when we look at each line, we really have to weigh what is inside of our own particular mindset as individuals. Remember, we work from the micro to the macro. So micro in my mind is always you start with the individual, and then you
Mm,
go into the family, the community, the nation, and of course then the race. So the aims is to, make sure that we build for ourselves, make sure you're trying to heal, make sure that you understand. I want to address also that word revolution. What are the
mm,
aims of the revolution? I've always been taught that revolution means a complete transformation. And
mhm,
of course, that also means from the inside out. How do we transform our mindsets, our actions, our love, our language, our intents, our purpose to make it a better society, better than one that we have yet known? So I think that when people think of revolution, or we call ourselves revolutionaries, they always want to think of violence. And it really
mm,
is not. Just the first mode is not violent. That's usually the last resort. The first resort is to transform a mindset, transform a belief system, transform a way of living, acting, loving, and everything that goes with it. So I want people to, once we begin to talk about the aims of the revolution, what we have come together as a group of people back in 1968, and really defined out what do we want if we're calling ourselves a nation, and really be, kind of put down, as Sister Sa said, those overarching, what we call guidelines, and then building upon those. So with that, I use.
And
okay, all right. So this is. Oh, you go for it.
I just wanted to say one thing to add to what Mama Aya was saying. She said the word revolution, right? Like
Mm,
it is a lot of different thoughts about what that word is, because they've been looking at it from the lens of, you think American Revolution, you think
Yes.
wars, you think how the way that media has always portrayed what revolution is, right? And
mm,
this is New African Perspectives. What does revolution look like from our perspective and our seat, in alignment with our ultimate goals and aims
Absolutely.
of our revolution? You know what I'm saying? If you Once we go through our aims, you know, our movement seems like heaven,
mm.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
So um, I'm looking forward. That's all I wanted to say, because she brought up a good point.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So yeah, to the weeks to come, we're gonna be diving deep into this document and seeing what it's all about. But I mean, as you can see, so far, our ancestors left us the blueprint. So there's no need whatsoever to try to reinvent the wheel. It's already created. We can make some adjustments to it. We can update it. We can utilize the technology of the day and infuse it to make it more efficient, but we ain't got to create nothing new, y'all. It's already laid out for
Exactly.
us. You know what I'm saying? So with that, Madam President, what we got on tap for the show today?
Okay, well, look, this is a good. We done started a whole new month. This is Women's Month, so every show we're going to be highlighting a sister, a queen mother that has put her heart and soul into our movement, right? So we're going to be honoring on this day in our Black Power file the Honorable Queen Mother Assata Shakur.
Mm,
Ashe. Ashe.
Okay. About. And then, of course, in our cadre corner, we are going to be going over a document concerning Dred Scott. I don't think it's the actual, what's the name of it, Mama Ayo? I don't think it was the actual case. What was it?
Oh, that was just a book that kind of highlighted who Dred Scott was. But
Oh,
actually, I want to go into the case
mhm.
where we want to talk about, which you can Google it. It is Dred Scott, of course, versus John, I believe, Sanford. So
Mhm.
it
yep.
went all the way up to the
Yep.
Supreme Court, and it is a landmark decision. It was a transformational decision. It sent a clear, as they say, a clear and
Mm,
present message to enslaved Africans at that particular time. So I just feel like we need to discuss that, because we always have to go back and
Mhm.
talk about and analyze from whence we've come.
Mhm. Yes, yes, wonderful. And because we're going over that, we have the question of, are Black people truly citizens of the United States? So that's what we are going to be discussing today. So it's going to be a lively discussion.
Mhm.
It's going to be a
You
live.
know it is.
This is going, look now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But what's in the news, Brother Prophecy? What's going on in the news?
Oh man, it's a lot going on in the news. Let's see, might as well start out with something positive. Today marks the 66th year anniversary of the independence of Ghana.
Yeah.
And there will be several celebrations throughout that particular country. On March 6, 1957, Ghana won its independence from British imperialism, British colonization. And today they will be having several parades, ceremonies, speeches, and other events. It also celebrates one of its most influential leaders and symbols of independence and great scholar, Mr. Kwame Nkrumah himself. So I just kind of want to start it out with that. What do y'all think is the significance of Ghana's independence? How should we look at that? How should we do that as new African people?
I'm gonna let you go first on that one.
Can you hear me? There's some breaking up. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's crackling a little bit though.
Okay. I'll try to talk quickly and then I'll go out and come back in. For some reason, it's crackling. Ghana independence. March 6, 1957. We're talking about when we talk about the entire world being shaken up, because this was the first African country to declare its independence. Actually, Nkrumah was, I believe, he was in jail when he found out that despite his incarceration by the British at that time, because they needed to shut him down, the people voted for his particular party, and he was able to rule for a significant amount of time, from 1957 to 72, and being able to do some wonderful, wonderful things, and actually set this country on the course of promoting liberation from colonial masters from that particular point on. And as I said, Ghana holds the distinction of being the first country. It holds the distinction of pushing Pan-Africanism. It holds the distinction of building upon the ideas of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, to the point where the Black Star was adopted in its colors, the red, black, the green, and the gold, with the Black Star in the middle. There's a Black Star Square. You have a lot of things that are legacies from that time. It was a time when African Americans, West Indians, the diaspora were invited to come back home and help build Ghana. And of course, Kwame Nkrumah leading his particular country into what we call just a new mindset, because Ghana literally was the home base for all liberation movements. And he supported so many, from Samora Machel, Patrice Lumumba, Mugabe, of course, Ezekwe, Nnamdi Ezekwe, all of them, the big six. And of course, he did form alliances with the Arab, what they call the Afro-Arab alliances. So he showed what the concept of what we call collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, and to put it really, really nicely, he started talking about scientific socialism. In other words, allowing the state to take care of the people, free education, free medical care, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a very, very magical time. We all know that Malcolm, of course, went there, met, Muhammad Ali came through. So many personalities came through Ghana at that time. And of course, he was deposed by a coup eventually in 1972, or a little before 72, because he died in 72. But just being aligned with with young men and women who had traveled and found out that Africa should be free from its colonial masters. And yet he warned of this day. He warned of this day. So that neo-colonialism would rear its head, and it would be even more insidious and tragic than colonialism. So Ghana, we congratulate you, but we're very, very sad that you have fallen into the snares of neo-colonialism, which means that is Africa truly independent? And with that, I yield.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm going for that, right? Because the major thing, neo-colonialism, just across the board, it to me at this it is a mental spiritual war. You know what I'm saying? To differentiate the two worlds that we tend to be traveling. And what I mean by worlds, I mean two different systems. We say we want to build a different system, yet we tend to revert back to that which our conditioning is, or still have links and ties to the colonizer, right? Mm-hmm. Resources, oh, well, we need this because that was one of the major issues was sometimes things happen so quick and so fast that the rest of that, everything that needs to come along with it so that it can be sustainable, it doesn't always happen, because of the system before, certain things weren't necessarily solidified. You know what I'm saying? So we can really learn from these different movements, specifically liberation movements that in turn over time have become neo-colonialized. You know what I'm saying? So that's the major thing that we don't need to skip over, smooth over as just this concept. No. When we revert back to acting like our colonizers and creating the same systems and supporting the same systems of ways of being and oppressing our own people, that's what we have to avoid by all means, because it's extremely destructive. It defeats the whole purpose of being independent.
Definitely.
I'm looking for, and once we start going over our aims of revolution, what our aims actually are, and how it's two different worlds, two different paradigms. Mm-hmm. And we have to be able to 100% shift to our paradigm that's created by us, that supports us, that's not created by us, that does not support us and is not beneficial. Like, these are the things that we have to discuss and plan thoroughly.
Definitely. Just to kind of pick up on something you said, how many times once we gain a certain amount of liberation, or we go into another stage, we revert back to the old. That's why I say we have to take a scientific approach to this. We have to be science in there, because if you just understand the laws of development, the science of development, you understand when we have that what they call a qualitative leap. That means when we go into that next stage of development, it's always an opportunity or a good chance of you to revert back old, because they call the negation of the negation the third step. That's where you have to completely eradicate the old and replace it with the new. That's a scientific principle, because regardless to how we feel about it, the new is always going to emerge from the old. Exactly. And anytime the new emerges from the old, there's always that possibility for the old to re-emerge and reestablish itself. So in one thing you have to understand, especially in our situation, there are going to be forces who are going to be trying damn hard to make sure that the old is not completely eradicated, because the old is based on the exploitation of our people and the benefit and the empowerment of the white power structure. So the white power structure, with its gain an unbelievable amount of wealth, power, and influence over the world, is not going to try to make or allow our paradigm, our systems to take hold. They're going to do everything in their power to maintain their structure, maintain their influence, even if it looks differently. even if we are in control of it. They don't really care about us having a black face on it. They just want to make sure that they can continue to exploit the land, resources, labor, and people. That's why we have to understand things from a scientific level, because if you don't, we can be impressed by the appearance of something and not realize it. Same thing going on. Just like today, people talk about the slavery is old. The same people still exploiting the resources, the labor, and they're still getting all of the benefits from the people at the expense of the people. So, the look of it has changed, but the results have not really changed. So that's really important. That's, I think y'all did a great job of really pointing out the important things that we should study from these movements of the 60s. And that's definitely one, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to gain our independence. And every African nation, basically, once they gain their independence, they gotta knock on the door by the World Bank and the IMF saying, okay, y'all independent now. It's time to rebuild y'all infrastructure. I'll give you these loans and you can do it, and you'll be, right with us with the superpowers. And it was a trick. And that's why many African nations are struggling today. Like you say, is that our African countries really independent? No, they are not. It's something called neo-colonialism, in which Kwame Nkrumah articulated perfectly. But thank y'all for that analysis. That was dope. Next story. So everybody has heard about the case with our brother Tyree Nichols. Well, there's another case actually right here in Memphis, Tennessee, that a lot of people haven't heard about. But just last Thursday, the Nashville District Attorney released video showing the killing of a black man by the name of Gershon Freedom in the Shelby County Jail, also known as the infamous 201 Popular. Now, basically, this happened in October, but a 33-year-old black man inmate was having a mental health crisis. So he was having a psychosis in a bad situation. There were guards who were giving them, I guess, their lunch or whatever, giving food to him. And when they opened up his cell to give him his food, he ran out of the cell. Immediately, these guards converged on him and began to brutally beat him. It had like 10, 15 guards beat him at once. And he was going through it. Ultimately, after they beat him and they finally, kind of got him under control, there was one guard who put his knee on his back for like 4 minutes until he basically stopped moving. The results of the autopsy it ruled a homicide. He suffered cardiac arrest due to the confrontation, and now people are wanting answers. People are questioning the conditions of 201 Popular. But it's the same situation. I'm going to go to the video and actually show some of it. But I mean, this basically was a brutal attack. They weren't trying to subdue this brother or anything. They basically just attacked him like it was like a game fight. It was terrible. Now the video has no audio, so I'll be talking through it a little bit. So as you see, they're giving him his food, and he comes out and he tries to run. You see him taken to the ground, and they're just beating him. And here comes the cavalry. Now, as you see, individuals are beating him with batons. They're pepper spraying him, kicking him. Now the video is actually 13 minutes long, so I'm not going to play the whole video, just some of it. What we didn't see in that particular video was, eventually one of the officers had his knee on his back for like about 4 minutes, and he stopped moving. But I mean, y'all see a whole bunch of people just beating him, wasn't trying to subdue him. Now I've studied and trained martial arts for many years, over 20 years. And there are ways to subdue someone. It had nothing to do with beating him, kicking him, punching him. Those are not ways to subdue someone. That's how you fight somebody in a street fight. Subdue something is like you take control over the limbs, the joints, and you make it so he can't move, where he's no longer a threat. And if you have 2 or 3 people, it's easy to do that to somebody, even if they are out of control. If you're doing it with technique, they had about 20 people, and they just was beating this brother. Y'all have any comments on this particular case?
Yes. Okay. So this is a prime example of Brother Prophecy. Well, we know that the ultimate goal was not to subdue, because you explained how simple a subdue is. Actually, it just took them 2 officers, really the first 2, to do that.
Yep.
Really just get him under control. That's it. That would have been proper. But because the ultimate goal for the correctional facility and the police department is not just to subdue and keep peace. That's not. They're the overseers. These are the overseers of the plantation. Okay. They the overseers. What did the overseers do? Overseers whooped slaves to death. Hey, they were the ones that were utilized to whip slaves to death. You had white overseers and you had black overseers. It's not nothing that we see. When we see black officers attack black people, this is not new in this system. This is, this has been going on for a long period of time. Yeah, it's disappointing to see. It's always disappointing, but it's nothing new, right? And the goal is not to subdue. The goal is to punish. The goal is to show example. The goal is to scare the living daylights out of you. The goal is to torture you until, right? And in this case, the goal was, we're going to kill you, because there's no way that 15 officers can go up in there, beat this man to death, and think he's about to survive that. With
exactly.
And stomps and all of these people are quote unquote trained, quote unquote, right? They know kill moves. They know what's painful. They know. So, the goal was to kill them. And that's what they did.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing across this country, because they're all trained the same way. They're all trained exactly the same way. They go on their little, of course, their training when you go to the academy. Here is another case in point where you have legalized lynching. They didn't have to string them up. They just have to beat them to death. And they have learned and they have exhibited gang mentality, where you're not going to fight me one-on-one. You're just going to get a whole mob and you're going to subdue this person. There are ways in which, especially if somebody's having a mental health crisis, there are ways that you can hold, talk softly, de-escalate until you can find a way in which somebody calms down. It's really a perception that they're taught, because remember, they're coming from a society that has always taught, they have certain visions or impressions of who and what Black people are and what they are capable of. And this is a prime example, is that if it's, what they say, they used to say, let's go toe to toe. If go toe to toe, they know they finna get their asses beat toe to toe, man on man. Man on man, the way it was back in the day. We finna whoop your what? And sometimes we're going to whip more than one. So based on that particular fear that Caucasian people have, their policies are made to stop, kill, ask questions later. We'll take the fallout under the guise of so-called civil society. because what that is that's a crime against humanity. That's a crime against humanity. People behind the walls, who are incarcerated, are still citizens, are still supposed to be guaranteed you are innocent until proven guilty. So, based on that principle, your behavior should be, or the way they treat you should be different. And that's not the case for Black people. That is not the case for Black people here in America. And with that, I yield. And condolences to the family, always.
Yes. Yes, condolences to the family. And supposedly, this is what I learned in Citizens Police Academy. Supposedly, officers are supposed to be trained to handle mental cases totally different. Like totally different. There's supposedly certain things that you're not allowed to do. There's a certain number of people that come. It's a certain, you don't even utilize the same weaponry.
Thank you.
Mental case inmates.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different. And we didn't see none of that in that video. So all of them need to be.
They were out of order.
They was all the way
out of
order. They looked like they didn't have no order. Didn't they just look like some folks from off the street that just came to just jump the cat?
Yep.
That's what it looked like. It was so chaotic. It was nothing. Wow.
Yep, exactly. I mean, y'all said it. That was not about subduing them, not about gaining control over the situation. That was about inflicting a punishment. It was like, how dare you run? How dare you do something that is not within the stated mode of behavior that we expect from you? And that's what it was. And that's historically, that's what the police have always done to our community. If you go back to the inception, back when the slave catchers and the slave patrollers, their job has always been to patrol the plantation. If you get a runaway, that's the first thing that guy did, he ran. And if you notice, every time we run, if things happen bad for us, but when they catch an enslaved person who ran away from the plantation, then their job and responsibility is to immediately inflict a punishment on them, and to do it publicly and send a clear message that no, this is not going to be accepted from you. We know that this type of behavior is accepted from certain groups of people, but none of it that looks like us. So yeah, y'all absolutely correct. And this is just another case of many, and this one, I haven't heard as much from this case,
because that's usually what happens, Brother Prophecy, is that a lot of people don't have those kind of funds. A lot of times they have their hands tied. They're economically not able. They try to get themselves a public defender. Public defender isn't for the defendants. It's for the state. They're not going to give them the right information, because at the end of the day, you have to take on the whole police department. Who's got money, time, and resources? Not everybody can call a Ben Crump. Not everybody can call a Al Sharpton on down. I mean, I'm hoping that family will eventually go to the NAACP and get some kind of assistance, or come to some up and coming new criminal lawyers who are for the people. But that's not our case. That's not our reality right now. So you get caught in the system, and it's systemically stacked against us. Systemically, the odds are against enslaved Africans, and you may have some valid cases. One of the things that you mentioned is that this particular brother Gershon, he was having a mental health crisis. And we have to understand that a lot of times our youth and our brothers are coming in because they're either alcohol or drug or having a bad trip or whatever. In many cases, not all. So the modus operandi already should be assess the situation. And that is not the case when it comes to new Africans. As I said, we keep saying shoot first and then ask questions later. People will tell you he's on something, stop, try to talk him down. I just couldn't control him. I need help. And they end up regretting that they had to call for help because it ends up in death. It ends up in death. So, I mean, whichever way we turn, we have roadblocks put up in our way because this system is not, and I mean not, designed to assist, to help in any way. So, with that, I yield.
Exactly. And we got to keep that in mind constantly. This week, stepping out of this 100%, creating our own. We got to remember that, and stop being so surprised. That's what gets me. We be surprised every time. Like, we be like, oh my goodness. I mean, surprised in terms of loss, I get. But surprised in terms of what this system is capable of doing, no, I don't get that. I don't get that.
Absolutely.
I don't get that part because this system is wicked. It's just a wicked system. Period. There is no other. All the other words that equal out to that: diabolical. All of those.
Exactly. One thing you mentioned about mental health and how police are supposedly trained to treat mental health differently. And I don't know, maybe they do, but they don't. Black people don't get that benefit of a doubt. Black people, we can be going through all kind of issues, but that's never a defense for us. European people, they can go kill up 1 million people and have them for dinner. All he has is insane, and that's a defense, but you never hear that for our people. And our people have suffered a far disproportionate amount of trauma that leads to all type of mental dysfunctions and things that we will have to deal with, but that's never taken into account. We're just criminalized. Our behavior is always criminalized. We're always the boogeyman. And this is part of the American propaganda. They've been having a propaganda campaign for ever since the Emancipation Proclamation that has Black people as these superhuman people who have no feelings, who can run through bullets, who can do all of these things. I mean, the defense for Mike, the guy who killed Mike Brown, was he was 35 feet or yards away from him, and he turned around and charged at him from 35 yards away. Like, okay, like for real. That's so you had to shoot, which they don't even make sense anyway that he would do that. But the fact that a defense like that, somebody would even allow somebody to have a stupid defense like that, we have to say that you must think these people that's the Incredible Hulk, But
Brother Props, you brought up something. We try to move on, but this conversation is too good. You brought up something really, 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 really key, because in reality, within this particular system and the framework of mental illness, all Black people fit underneath that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. See, if this system was right and exact, all Black people would be handled with particular care. Of our reality, we not well mentally. We're not. Based upon our actions, we're crazy. Okay, we not well. Those of us that are holding on to our sanity, well done. But we taking extra precautions to even see anything clear. Do specific things to keep us on a particular course. It's not the easiest thing. There was the intention with it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's so much distraction. And when I say distraction, y'all know I mean from on every single level. So if this system really was for us, Black people would be handled specifically with a particular type of care because of the mental illness. And then it's quite interesting if, based upon the behavior of what's happening and what goes on, if the education system only teaches go to school, get good grades, get a good job so you can get a good job, go to school to get a. Now what if you have a person that has did all of the above, and they still can't get a job, then what else are they to do? Right?
That
They
sounds like half of America.
what
Yep.
what else are they to do when they have not been educated or shown any other way to get it? And then it's a complaint when they get it a different type of way, right?
Mhm.
It's always a complaint. But is it really truly that person's fault if they've that person could have went on 20 job interviews, and we know this is real,
Yep.
and came up with nothing.
Nothing.
Broke. Folks are starving in the house. What am I going to do? Back up against the wall. I ain't growing my own food. I'm in a food desert. I'm just saying. What else is there to do?
Yeah, I mean, great points. I mean, honestly, because you brought up a lot of key points. Because one, like this system within itself really attacks people who are not wealthy, who have a lot of money. It's really because 201 pop. I know people personally who have been in 201 popular. 201 is not the prison system. That's the jail. That's when you go, when you get arrested and you waiting
Thank
on
you.
your trial. I know people who have been in 201 popular for multiple years simply because they don't have the money to get the bail. And
Thank
they
you.
actually got a great case. They have a case. You look at their case and you're wondering, why are they even there? They
Right.
don't have enough money to get the bail,
Mhm.
and they don't have enough money to get a good lawyer. Those two things,
Absolutely.
because like you said, Mama, your public defender basically works for the state, for the
Mhm.
prosecutor.
Thank you.
They just there so you can fulfill their duty to say you had a fair trial, but that's it. So you are absolutely correct. And the other thing that it brings, when you were talking about all Black people suffer from a form of mental illness, it just happens that some of us are able to function with it. We're functional while dealing with this. But that brings into play the whole concept of reparations and why, what it actually really means, why some people talking about a check. Reparations is about repair because we have been damaged.
Mhm.
We have been damaged. When you go into our community, you are seeing a damaged people who have been damaged for many, many centuries. And a check is not going to repair the damage to be done. You know what I'm saying? So,
You're
yeah, so.
definitely correct because we have to set up in all of our different enclaves. Our people need to have access to free mental health services from people
Mhm.
that look like them, that are trying to help you navigate through the paradigm of understanding that you're a whole human being on this earth with certain inherent rights, and yet you have not been able to obtain those rights. Everybody knows that stuff ain't correct. Everybody knows it. But the whole point is, how do you articulate what you don't feel it, what you feel is
Exactly.
wrong? We
Exactly.
don't know how to articulate it, or what we call manifest, setting up strategies on how to combat it, and it has to come from within the community, not from outside the community. So reparations would be part of that, making sure that our people are healthy and a little bit more whole. Because remember, when you talk about the Jewish community, they
Mhm.
talked about that post-traumatic stress syndrome. We want to take it. We've been saying it's a post-traumatic slave syndrome. It is epigenetics. It is
Mhm.
very, very, very insidious, and it comes with all of those levels of what we call our mental health. Because our mental health does not look like what we call the captive mental health. We're gonna get into that when we talk when we go through Francis Cress Welsing's book. It's a whole different paradigm because we are whole different
Mhm.
people. So,
Exactly.
and a lot of times, our mental health, we've been, like they used to when they first came with the indigenous. It's the same strategy when they first came into Africa: alcohol and glitter, alcohol
Mhm.
and glitter. Everything that glitters is not gold. That bling bling that we like so much. those things are mesmerizing. The alcohol, the drugs that are in our community. We don't grow that stuff. So obviously, we are what we call social experiments. And the social experimentation has created more and more what I feel is mental health issues in our community.
Yeah. And we can go with this subject all day, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna bleed into our main topic, because everything that we're talking about kind of it goes to that question: are we really citizens? But I got one more story, and not really a story. One more thing that I want to address before we get out of here, take our first break. But March, and my Sama alluded to this early, but March marks the beginning of Women's History Month. And here at the New African Perspective, we definitely want to celebrate Women's History Month because we have some strong, powerful queens in our history. So every week we're going to be highlighting a Black leader, a Black woman leader that was significant and important to the role of our struggle. And with that, briefly, I just wanted to have a little short conversation about, what's the significance of women in our struggle, in our movement. And I'll open it up to anybody.
Dang, we finna be here on 3 hours.
I know, right?
Well, we always know that your nation. And I don't know who said it, but I know our nation cannot rise higher than the education of our women, the attitude of the women, because the women are the portals in which our ancestors come back onto this earth. And it is what we call the foundation of the family. If our women are disillusioned, out of order, oppressed, not as educated as they should be, don't have the skills to educate their children from the womb until they turn them over to the education system, a new African education system, then that is part of the ruin of our people, because the ruin of the nation begins in the home. And we know that the mother is the first home. The father is the first family. So it is very important. Our women must be educated, elevated, honored, protected, defended. Otherwise, we have a triple hard job to do. And with that, I yield.
Yes, indeed. And then, women are the keeper of the culture. And what I mean by that is just to add on to what Mama Ayo said, as being the first teachers in terms of the ways, means in which we do things, the way we relate to one another, the way we relate our relationship with nature, the way we what our ultimate goals are, and what the steps in organizing that looks like. Like, women are the nurturers. So we're going to nurture step by step what needs to take place, what needs to happen, when we're in our right mind, right? Yeah. I'm going to say that because folks be like, not the women. We just talked about illness, okay? We're coming back to our original purpose as the nurturers. We nurture people and situations, all right? We nurture people and plans and goals and objectives. We're the nurturers of those things. So, I think our brothers create certain aspects of structure. We gonna nurture the inner workings of whatever that structure is in a very creative, nurturing way.
Agreed. And yeah, and I think it's very important that, we celebrate our history because we believe Black History 365, but women have had an extremely important part of our history, because we have to understand that we have been under attack. We have been in war in America for over 500 years, and a war strategy that has been utilized extremely effective on our people was to cut off the head so the body can't survive. And the Black male has been viciously attacked in this country. So in many cases, Black women have had to hold it down. They,
Yes.
if the black woman was not as strong as we as she is, then the black race would have been gone extinct. There would be no black race because
Exactly.
black women have had to play roles that she's never had, should have been put in position that she's never had, should have been placed into, but she has held it down, and it is a must. It is imperative that we hold her up and we celebrate her and we try to catch back up, and so we can have that meiotic balance to put our race, nation, community back in order, back in balance the way it should be. So yeah, definitely. And when I hear like music that not only celebrates murder of black people, but disrespects black women, that's just a
Mhm.
pure sign. That is a pure sign that people have been conquered. That's a pure sign that we are damaged,
Mhm.
because it's like, in order, I mean, Tupac said, what he say, if you raise, you will raise a race of babies that hate the ladies that make the babies,
Yes.
you know.
Yes, right.
I mean, think about that. We have a generation of people who hate women. They
Yes.
create babies.
That's
The
right.
woman is, like you said, the first teacher of the child. If you destroy a woman, you destroy a nation. You build a woman up, you build a whole nation. You build a man up, you build an individual, but you build a woman up, you build a whole nation. So yeah, so that's why we are uplifting the black woman and put her on a pedestal, because she should be put on a pedestal. Y'all should be put on a pedestal every day.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Yes, and it's very important that women put each other on pedestals. That women celebrate the whole unity of motherhood, sisterhood. That energy that is both protective and nurturing. And as we always say, from a military point of view, we that second line. That second line. Yeah, that second line. Because it's critical. Because we are women usually are the ones, and I'm not saying this is 100%. We're the ones that are going to take care of the children initially, and as our elders grow old and maybe feeble and not able to do as much, it's usually the daughters. I know there's some that don't have daughters, and the sons have to take over that responsibility. It's usually the daughters that are going to be up in there helping and cleaning and cooking and coming back to mom and pops and making sure everything is okay, as well as the sons. But the sons will have their function, and but the girl children will be doing something a little bit more, because it's very difficult for men to want to have to go take care of their mother and have to wash them and bathe them, etc., etc. The same as women, they're going to do all of that because they're used to that. They know what to do. So I'm not saying that men can't do it, but it's just a little bit easier with when
Mhm.
they have sisters to help, because they can take care of the hard work, whereas the inside work, the taking care, taking them to doctor's appointments, etc., making sure they take their medication, hey, while the brother's out there working and handling that business. That's all I'm saying. It is, everybody has their job and function, and it should be meiotic, as you said.
Definitely, definitely. So we have a cadre corner coming up. We're gonna be talking about the Dred Scott decision. That's a big one. That's a big one because it's like the anniversary of the Dred Scott decision, isn't it?
Yes, it
So
is.
yeah. So we'll
Do
be
we have
right
any
back.
comments? We have
Hmm?
comments from the audience.
Yeah, we do. We can get into some of those. Definitely, definitely. Melly Queen, you out there doing your thing. Um, as always, she says, don't forget these tricks unalived in a man with no legs. Oh yeah, he was on his knees.
That's
Definitely,
right.
definitely talking about that case where the
Yes.
brother who didn't have any legs was trying to get away and they shot him down. Let me
Yep.
see.
Fear.
Never,
That fear. Any black man, he could have one arm. They
yep.
gonna like, hey, he a threat. I fear
Mm-hmm.
for my life.
Yep.
Honey.
Never
Mm-mm.
surprised, sickened, and pissed. Definitely, I am too. On all that. Never surprised, but it's still sickening and pisses you off. Uh, half or over half of the lives of new Africans.
That's
Yes,
correct.
you was responding. Yeah. Who is this individual up here? This is, who's that? Black Wolf? Says Black Power. Black Power to you, Black Wolf. How you doing? I don't know who Black Wolf is. It's my first time hearing from Black Wolf. Well, welcome to the family.
Thank you.
And the Queen also. They target our children, mostly our boys in pre-K, and pipe them to prison. They give them those tests to see what is going on. Man, that's a real good point. Because school system, I mean, the whole nature of how school system is, when you test somebody, that's weaponized, because see, people learn in different ways. Intelligence is measured in different ways, more than just a test. You know, there are people who work with their hands. There are people who are good at figuring out things. There are people who are good at taking tests. But taking a test is not necessarily a measure of how smart you are. But in the school system, if you're good at taking tests, then you get promoted, you get praise, you get opportunity to go to classes where they teach things that they don't even teach other students. If you're not good at taking tests, you get labeled. In many cases, held back. So it's like, you know, the very nature of this school system weaponizes, and you have tests that works against people, which is just is crazy. And you know, don't get into special ed and all of these things. But anyway, let me see, brother John Ricky Sparks. How you doing? Not according to treaty law. I'm not sure what you're responding to that. It says we are more than citizens. Okay. Let me see. As peace to the gods.
I say.
All right. So we're going to be right back after this with a cadre corner. This is the New African Perspective. Free the land, y'all. Free the land.
Nation building. For many of us, the idea of nation building is too difficult, too complicated. It's impossible. But when you think about it, we're already nation builders. In fact, for the past 400 years, we've managed to build the most powerful nation on the planet. Unfortunately, this nation continues to disrespect, exploit, and oppress us. Here's a thought. Maybe we should focus on building our own nation.
Join us March 31st through April 2nd in Charleston, South Carolina, as the Republic of New Africa celebrates 55 years since the signing of our Declaration of Independence. Register on Eventbrite to attend in person and or online by typing in New African Nation Day 55. Also, find out more information on our website, pg-rna.com. Free the land by any means necessary.
Free the land, free the land, free the land. They gotta free the land, free the land, free the land.
Study the writings, speeches, documents of our freedom fighters in order to free our neo-colonialized minds. This is the Cadre Corner.
Ayo.
Yes, and this is, of course, the Cadre Corner, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a book here. It is a fictional book, but I loved it because it says, I Dred Scott, and it talks a little bit about this particular journey of this enslaved African. He was, of course, born an enslaved African, and he was, his owner was actually a surgeon in the U.S. military, and they went from place to place. What was interesting about this case, Dred Scott versus John Sanford, is that this man, of course, was a surgeon, not the John Scott, but his original owner, and he moved from place to place. Well, after the 1820 compromise, when everything below the Mason-Dixon line was considered slave states, and anything above the Mason-Dixon line was considered a free state. Dred Scott went with his master, and he was in these different free states. And yet, when his master came back to Missouri and eventually died, he is being his property, went to the wife and, of course, his brother. Well, at that time, women weren't really allowed, white women weren't really allowed to, have a lot of property, and a lot of their properties went to the brothers and the uncles and et cetera, et cetera. They really had to suffer during that time. Well, Dred Scott, remember, he's an enslaved African, petitions for his emancipation for him and his wife, saying that he had been in free states and that he felt that he deserved to be emancipated and free. Well, of course, John Sanford, who was the wife's brother-in-law, actually went against this petition and was citing that he had no rights. How can somebody who was not even considered a citizen have rights against landowners? So we went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and in a historic decision, the U.S. Supreme Court really, really had a big, big, big battle, and they've been known in time immemorial that they actually upheld the thinking of the white supremacists at that time. What they said was basically that anybody who was not a citizen did not, of course, have rights, even though they may have been what they called immigrants or people who decided that they wanted to become citizens in the United States, not for enslaved Africans, because enslaved Africans, according to the Constitution, Amendment 1, Amendment 2, Amendment 3, they were considered properties. And so what really basically happened is that you talked about Chief Justice Taney said that they could not become citizens. He even went on to write in his briefs, because they always do explain their thinking, that the Declaration of Independence of this particular country that we know happened in 1776 purposely left out people of the African race. So again, he was saying this is another reason that they found out that, of course, Dred Scott and any other enslaved African, you could not become emancipated because you weren't a citizen. You're still a piece of property. And then he also, this Judge Taney, said that the Missouri Compromise of 1820 was unconstitutional as well. Let me say that. Unconstitutional as well. And the other thing that was really, really horrible about this case, because abolitionists were totally against this particular decision, but it had been done. Basically, you as an enslaved African, you couldn't petition for your freedom unless you went through manumission or your owner let you free. That was the only way that you ran away. That was the only way that you were going to obtain your freedom. So it was a very historic case. The interesting thing about this case is that when the decision came down, Mrs. Sanford had remarried to another man who was an abolitionist. And what he did with Dred Scott and his wife was to go ahead and take the both of them back to the original owner. The original owner wrote their freedom papers, but unfortunately, Dred Scott succumbed to tuberculosis just 1 year after this infamous decision, the Dred Scott case of 1857. And at the time, when you talk about 1857, y'all, if you do the math from 1619, we were 238 years into slavery. It was before the Civil War. So we were already here close to 240 years as enslaved Africans. And I know Dred Scott was not the only case, because there are other cases about trying to gain freedom. But this particular one was very historic, because it was for most new Africans, for most enslaved Africans and abolitionists at that particular time, it was a setback. So I encourage you to look it over, to remember that this country said from its highest Supreme Court, the Declaration of Independence was drafted to purposefully not include you, Black man and woman, enslaved African, indigenous, Aboriginal brothers and sisters, purposefully did not include us. So with that, I encourage you to look it up, Google it. Hopefully you have a book. This, of course, I said it says I Dred Scott, but of course it's a fictional book, but it has some pertinent information in there. And it's good. It might be a wonderful book for you to let your children read, because it's really quick read and it's very, very, very interesting. So with that, I yield. Dred Scott versus John Sanford,
And that's
1857.
the Dred Scott decision. Yeah, that's a landmark case, and it's real significant, because basically the white power structure basically let us know concretely in plain language where we stand.
Exactly.
Basically, you are property, and because you are property, there's no rights that you could possibly have that white people ever have to acknowledge. And
Right.
hey, so there
They
it
said
is.
we are not. They said you're not a citizen and you're not protected under this Constitution.
Hmm. Yeah, so as beautiful as many of those words in the Constitution, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that blah, 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 blah. It was not meant for us. But with that, that brings us to our topic. Since this landmark Supreme Court decision basically said Black people, y'all ain't citizens, never was, never will be, never was intended to be. That brings us to the topic of today. Are we 2023 Black people, new African people, are we really citizens of the United States of America? I mean, Malcolm said that democracy in America is hypocrisy, and Black people are only second class citizens, and second class citizen equates to slavery. Just a 21st century slave. That's basically what Malcolm said. So, are we actually citizens? Are we equal Americans? Do we have equal protection under the law as other people do? So I'm gonna open that question up. I'm gonna go straight to you, Mama Ayo. I think Sister Sai is driving.
Well, of course, our answer would be absolutely not, because remember, we are students of history. We
Hmm.
have understood that at one point in time after the Civil War, after you had, of course, the compromises, I should say the confiscation acts of 1861 and 1862. So we're fast forwarding from 1857, 58. And then, of course, you have the Emancipation Proclamation, and then it moves on to the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. We know that there was a time in history when the Emancipation Proclamation guaranteed protection of this new class of citizens that were recently freed. The Field Order number 15 laid out that all portions of the military, because at the time there was just the Army, the artillery at that particular time. There was no Navy, Air Force, Navy SEALs, blah, 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 blah. They were guaranteed to be protected. Their rights were to be defended. They were allowed to supposedly settle on lands that were put aside, given the basic tools. And we know historically that within 6 months, there were townships being built. There were people who were thriving because we built this country. Our labor, our hands, the tools, the very, what do you call it, rudimentary tools, because we didn't have hydroponics, hydroelectrics, electric drills, hammers, concrete. We were cutting down them trees. We were splitting the logs. We were going through everything that needed to be going through. We were picking that cotton, processing that cotton, packing that cotton, picking that, planting, picking everything that anybody needed. We were cleaning out the slop jars. We were nursing them babies, black and white, with our breasts. We were raped and having to produce children upon children, inbred. We built this country, and when the Emancipation Proclamation came up, and of course, within 6 months, the protection that was guaranteed as citizens, protection, all of that was thrown to the ground. What y'all think about that? And then we had to be, of course, written that we had the right to vote. 14th, we are citizens, whatever. So really and truthfully, the question remains, we had to be emancipated. We had to be given our freedom, but were we given the social and political rights that are supposed to be defined and embedded with every supposed citizen according to the Constitution of the United States? You've heard us say many times, we went into chain gangs. We had to go into the black codes. There are laws written in people's states that have nothing to do with our emancipation, but are further legal, what we call legal and physical enslavement, without saying we're still in chattel chains. So no, I don't think so. Integration, affirmative action, does that sound like rights and privileges given to every citizen without regard to race or color? What y'all think about that? I yield.
I mean, to me, it's just a game. You understand what I'm saying? Because really and truly, our ancestors who specifically was building on the land, that was not necessarily the majority of our intention of becoming part of whatever this thing is that we done freed ourselves from, that we are now quote unquote liberated from. That was, come on now. After experiencing such torture and such horrendous, you done seen some of the most horrendous things happen to you and your loved ones. Would you want to even think about being a part of the folks that did all of this?
Exactly.
No, we zeroed in and we focused on building for self. That's why, like how Mama Io said, immediately. I mean, look, we had many a blacksmith. So whatever tool was necessary, we had to make the tool. Okay. But we had the skill sets to do so. So up and popping. But when they seen how progressive, if things was moving too quick, things was moving quick. Because remember, these is during Reconstruction all the way up to present time. We've witnessed Black people lose land. We've witnessed Black people lose their life because they were considered to be too wealthy. Because, you know, Black people back then, they was having 12, 14 children. Imagine all of them getting grown and they all working on your land.
Hello?
And they're married and then they have children. I read an account, I can't remember the brother's name, but that was what his land looked like. All of his children and his children's spouses and then their children. And so that he was multiplying quick and fast. He got lynched because he was doing too well. He was the richest one, period. You know what? That's the reason why traditionally in our traditional customs, whether it's from Africa or any indigenous other area where we come up out of, that's considered your wealth or your children. Why? Because you can multiply quick. And when we say multiply quick, we talk about the work. Whatever it is your lineage is doing, it's happening. And it's going to happen really, really well. And it's going to happen really, 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 it's going to be fulfilled. You know, you don't got to look for folks to do it. You gave birth to folks to do it. You know? So
those skills.
Exactly. That is our prosperity. So, you know, all of these different games. That's game. You know, oh, you're doing too well. We're not keeping that promise. Mm-hmm. Period. We're not keeping those promises. That's quote unquote legal promises. And then forget what you say. We're not even gonna ask you. We just gonna make you a part of. We're gonna naturalize you as a citizen because you was born on these lands that don't even belong to you.
Thank you.
Anyway, but we're gonna just make you. That's what the 14th Amendment did. We just gonna make you a citizen.
But with no rights. With no rights.
With no rights, but we're gonna make you a citizen. We didn't ask you, mind you, you free. But we're not gonna ask you what you want to be a part of and what you want to participate in. And whatever you done built, we gonna fuck it up.
Exactly. Or steal it. Or steal it.
Steal it.
Or destroy it. What?
So no, we're not citizens. We're actually prisoners of war still. We're still prisoners of war because that's acts of war. If we are attempting at being emancipated and we're building and we're being successful, and then here you come through, is that not war? Is that not war?
That's an attack. That's an attack.
That's war. And we still in battle. They done figured out different ways to kill you now. Well, some is the same way, as we always highlight. But those other subtleties, we're going to have to cover some of these other subtleties in terms of how people die via food, how people die via the prescription drugs that are legal, over-the-counter, poison. And then how many of your folks is taking about 15 of them pills every day? They have all types of side effects. I mean, you know, we prisoners of war. We're still we in warfare, y'all.
Definitely. All excellent points. You said something that's really important. They never asked us. They just say, okay, we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do with Black people. What do we want to do with you? Like, in other words, you're still our property, and we still going to determine your destiny for you. That's why within the Nguzo Saba, our creed and everything, we talk about the need for self-determination to determine our own path, to be able to decide for ourselves what our future is. But they never did ask us. The only time that they did ask us was during Special Field Order number 15. And they even said themselves, they marketed that as, this is a great opportunity for the Black man to play a part in creating his own future. That's what it was. And our ancestors during that meeting clearly said, what we want is we want land, and we want it away from you.
Thank you.
Period. That is clear. You know, and that began to happen. But as y'all always pointed out, once we begin to succeed in it, because some of our people got the land, some of our people began to build on the land, some of our people planted the seeds of nationhood way back then. And as soon as that was happening, well, we got to take it back. We got to take it back. We have to renege on our promise. And that's been happening ever since. So it's like, first of all, the word of the United States, the laws of the United States, all of these policies, they don't really mean anything, because as the indigenous people say, they speak with forked tongues. We think about the civil rights movement. People think about something that happened in the 60s. The reality is the first civil rights bill was passed in 1866. Everything in that bill should have been able to cover any type of equality that Black people needed if you were to follow that bill. You know, we don't need more laws. We got plenty of laws. It's the will of this white power structure to enforce them, because these laws are not created in order to give us an equal footing. We're not in this system to be equal to white people under this system. And every time I hear somebody says we struggling for equality, I always say, hold on, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking at European people as being the biggest murderers, robbers, rapers, thieves in the planet has ever seen. So that ain't nothing I want to be equal to. You know, that's an insult to me to say I'm equal to that. But under this system, and even the great emancipator himself, Abraham Lincoln, said that he do not believe that Black and white people are equal, and that if we are to live together, there will be one that's a superior and one that's inferior. And he always would refer to that superior be that of the white people. So there's nothing within this system that says, I mean, they got some beautiful 14th Amendment. Yeah, you got your citizenship, 15th Amendment. You got right to vote, but I could swear it was a voting rights bill in 1965. You know, that's like over 100 years later. So you know what? Yeah, what happened to the 15th Amendment? That's the Constitution. That's the highest law of the land, supposedly. You know what I'm saying? So we citizenship, why we need to protest? Well, we still protesting for voting rights, because all they did was just say, okay, you know what? You have a large black population right here, which give y'all power, political power. We're going to carve it up to make it so that we put some of y'all Negroes over here, some of y'all Negroes over here, and some of y'all over here. So y'all don't really have power. We see in Jackson, Mississippi, they trying to create a whole new government. So they won't be under the jurisdiction of this black population, a majority population. So, like I say, it's like you say, it's a bunch of games. They playing games with us. So we got to not get caught up in their game, because we get focused on the Republicans are so damn bad and the Democrats are just wrong. Yeah, both of them bad. Both of them wrong, and we ain't got no business trying to use our energy and our skill and talents to play and fight into their game. That's their business. Let them do their war. You know, stop being pawns in their game. What we need to do is focus on our own game, build our own system up, use our talents, our skills, and our ability to worry about ourselves, because they don't told us time and time and time again, we ain't no damn citizens. So let's stop pretending that we are, and let's become citizens of our own nation. And I yield on that.
And which highly melanated people that are listening, you are already a citizen of the Republic of New Africa. Now, it is your choice if you want to become a conscious citizen or a conscious citizen worker, but you have a nation, okay?
Already
And
got
always remember that all of the rights that are guaranteed, not only your human rights, but your so-called civil rights, you know, the right to bear arms, the right to, you know, defend yourself, the right to a speedy trial, a right to, you know, go to school. All of those things are on paper. But when you talk about the systemic racism, the systemic blockages that occur along the way for you to live just a normal life, you know, go to school, find the profession, find what you love, find a job, etc., etc. That doesn't happen for the majority of enslaved Africans, brown people, indigenous people, the Aboriginal people here in this country. And the only reason why it happens for our what do we call it, our Japanese, our Asian brothers and sisters, the brothers and sisters that come from the Middle East and some parts of Africa, is because there are what we call strategies put in place and help for them to, when they do come and they want to naturalize or immigrate, they have incentives. They have incentive programs. And culturally, they band together to make sure that there is not a lot of problems, that the prosperity comes quickly. Monies is turned over. You look at the Ukrainians today. How does anybody come into our country and just every family get $100,000? How does that happen? How does that happen? You haven't even considered $100,000 just for 1 year of labor that we did way back in 1619. Not to mention all of our peoples. Are you serious? Are you serious? Anybody who comes and could start off a life of $100,000 and utilize it is going to be prosperous, because you're going to use some of that money, save some of that money, invest some of that money, and very quickly and exponentially, you're getting ready to create generational wealth, particularly if you decide to implement cooperative economics. Look, come on, we're all doing the formulas here. And we see the disparities in treatment. Even the disparities of the Ukrainians can come in by the thousands upon thousands, and you clearly see that Haiti is under attack by the whole European Union, and they can't come in. They can't come in. Our brothers and sisters from some countries in Africa, 1 or 2 can come in per year, or whatever the formula is. But it's a business. It is a racket. I'm going to call it a racket, because they're getting monies and they can't come into this country. So you spend all this money, you make all this preparations, and you're enriching the government of the United States, because you got to pay to come in, over here to this country. Ukraine didn't do that. That doesn't have anything to do with us. The Ukrainians should have been dispersed in Europe, not America, in Europe. in Europe and other parts of Russia. So why are they here? Because there's a plan. We know it's about population control. I yield.
Yes, indeed, Mama Iowa, you brought up some really, really, really key points. And based upon what you said, there's no way, and that's because all of what you said is proof of that's the actions. The actions say the consensus is we are not citizens. Okay, if we do not have the same rights, if we don't have we're not citizens. We're prisoners of war. We're not citizens. Okay, see, because Mama Ayo already said all these different folks be coming over. They give them stipends to come up into this country to start anew and to make things pop and make things happen. If we give it a stipend, that's taken away some way somehow with special field order 15. That was taken away somehow. All of these different things are always destroyed or taken away if we're doing too well.
Yes, exactly.
If we're doing well, it's too prosperous. It's some way or another is going to be compromised. Okay, if it's not taken away all the way, the infrastructure of it is going to weaken and it's going to be compromised. We've seen that many a times as well. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no way, like she said.
And so I just dropped out. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're okay.
Yes. So, no, we're not citizens. Mama Ayo just proved it with all of everything she ran down. No, you're not the same rights. You don't get the same privileges. You don't get none of that. It's not for you because this is not for you to benefit you. It's to feed off of you, to be a parasite to you. That's what keeps it running. So if you start thriving and you stop being a parasite, it ceases to exist. And so that's math, that's science. It cannot cease to exist. So by any means necessary, you got to remain a parasite.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So yeah. So I think the verdict is in. We're not citizens. No, we're not citizens. I mean, like I said earlier, we have to take a scientific approach to this, and we understand a lot of times it's really easy to look at the brutality, the murder, and the oppression that we face, and get the idea that, well, these people doing this because they don't like us. The reality is these things happen because they benefit from the exploitation of us. Slavery was about the exploitation of our ancestors. And if we look at that from the nature of exploitation, things really have not changed, because within our community, all those groups that come into America, that they are invited to come into America and give stipends and say, hey, come on, all of them do something similar. They look at the Black community and they say, wow, there's a great place I can exploit. And they go into our communities and they exploit it. You go into our community, you see Arabs, you see everybody except Black people feeding off of our community. And that's kind of the very nature of the relationship that Black people have had in this country, as being the individuals who made this country wealthy, rich, off our backs, off our blood, our sweat, and our tears. And nothing has changed about that.
And it's very interesting that you say that, because really, when you look at it, it is necessary for them to come and replace the other ethnic groups, because a lot of these ethnic groups cannot put their businesses into white communities. Mm-hmm. So they already know the formula. They're not going to be allowed to be there. So they have to be in our community, because we are some of the greatest consumers. The analysis has already been made. How much money does capitalism, imperialism make a year off of just the Black community? Whole studies, trends are created based on the data on what we buy, how we buy, when we buy. And of course, we know we need these convenience stores, because integration has decimated. Integration decimated our communities, because we were producing for self, we were building for self, we were buying for self. We had to, because segregation forced us to. integration was the big okey doke that we bought, and it really actually hurt the capital potential, the potential of capital in our communities, because it was more evenly divided. It was, everybody had jobs, everybody created jobs, everybody, employed one another, because where else were you finna work? Except those, of course, our women who wanted to be day laborers in folks' homes, cleaning houses and stuff. Everybody else was doing what? Trying to figure out how to make a money within our community, because otherwise you was finna be a lawn boy or whatever else we was finna be. Now there was only certain jobs, and we made it into certain businesses. But I'm saying, before those businesses, who built the homes of these first communities that was established? Who built the businesses? Who ran the trucks and the cars? I'm just asking the question because obviously we did, and we were cleaning on every level before other ethnic groups began to come in to this into this country. So we have to be very, very careful to not buy this illusion that we didn't do anything, that we were always lazy, just sitting around making babies, eating watermelon, and whatever else they want to talk about, dancing and laughing. Because that music that they talked about, we was always singing and dancing, you stole and you took it, and you've created a whole rock country music, rock and roll with your music and whatever else, because you sure didn't have it before you listened to these enslaved Africans bring it to you. So, I mean, every level of society, to the point where fashions were created off of us. We talk about the Hottentot Venus, because she had that, what we call that heavy, that bootylicious booty. They made the bustle, and that was way back in the 1800s. So come on, y'all. Let us be really, really clear, because it all comes back to us understanding and analyzing facts and data, which is why we're still under attack as an enslaved African community, because now you want our children to not have access to this information, because when your children begin to do the analysis or listen to the analysis that we make from our seat, the truth that we tell, they're like, "Ooh, did that really happen? Did you really do that? Did you really do this to people? And you done told us all this time?" Yeah, that's what this country did. And yet the people who are products of white privilege, the white petty bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie of this country, and even what we call the working masses, the proletariat, white privilege trumps all.
Definitely. So, like I said, the verdict is in. We are definitely not citizens of this country. But like we said earlier, this is Women's History Month, and we're going to be celebrating some great, outstanding, powerful Black women who are significant in our struggle. And we're going to get back right into that when we get back with our Black Power file with the infamous, the wonderful, the powerful Assata Shakur. We'll be right back after this, y'all. Free the land.
Mother.
America, full of promises. Time to cash them in. You run from it quick. You never keep your word. I learned from it quick. You keep abusing me. You dumb. Europeans murdered 98% of the indigenous population right here in Turtle Island in order to steal the land. An entire nation of African people were captured and forced into a brutal system of chattel slavery just so they could work and cultivate the land. All wars are fought over land, not over terrorism, not over religion, not even to win the hearts and minds of the people, but for the actual land and the resources within the land. So it is safe to say that land is the foundation to all freedom. So if we truly want to be free, then our struggle is for land. Free the land. Leaders, scholars, freedom fighters, all those
the whole liberation of oppressed people in the United States has to do not with climbing up some ladder to success, not for asking to be just like Rockefeller or just like DuPont or just like Ford, because that would only continue the oppression and exploitation of oppressed people in the United States, and specifically African people born and raised in the United States. Socialism is an integral part of building social justice on this planet. The condition of my people, my history was very much connected with other oppressed people, and I began to see that the same foot that was on the necks of the Vietnamese people, that was on the necks of all oppressed people on the planet, was the same foot that was on my neck. And so I began to understand that imperialism has to go. It is a poison that is killing people all over this world. The priorities of this planet have to be completely changed. And instead of profits, instead of policies that destroy the earth, that destroy the water, that destroy human beings, I believe a policy that protects people, that makes people live in a community, a world community. That's what I believe. That's my basic political commitment at this moment.
And that was Assata Shakur, ex-political prisoner, a member of the Black Liberation Army, Black Panther, who was involved in a situation in the Turnpike, a New Jersey Turnpike, during the era of COINTELPRO, where she and other brothers who were viciously attacked by New Jersey Police Department in a shootout, which led to the death of a police officer, in which she was actually shot 5 times, and she was charged with murder. A real, true Shiro story, because we didn't just let her stay and rot in prison. We went and we got her out. Heroic prison escape, and she was able to make her way to Cuba, where she is still free, alive, and well today. And we are demanding that hands off Assata, not only hands off of Assata, she should be allowed to come back, because most of our political prisoners, including her, was in that situation as the result of an illegal program. The counterintelligence program was an illegal program. But the only people who have suffered from that is our people who have been murdered. It's our people who've been in prison, our people who have to fled the country for their lives and can't return today, like our sister Assata. But Assata Shakur is a story, is an example of one of our people who won, because too many times our story ends with an assassination or something this brutal, but Assata won. And we should always hold up. So what y'all think about this Queen Mother Assata Shakur?
Oh, she's my hero.
Yes,
definitely my hero.
Okay, well, I remember reading her autobiography, right, when I was a late teenager. And the thing that stood out to me the most which was something that I was just experiencing or coming to experience as a female doing liberation work, right? She brought out, and she was very specific about the sexism that she experienced being a female liberator, right? Revolutionary. And I just thought that was just so, I felt like, we had a kindred spirit there, because I was experiencing some of the same things dealing with the organization that I was with at that time. For me, I was young at that time, and I had a father that always loved and respected me, and I didn't comprehend what was really going on. Like, I felt insulted a lot. Like intelligence was insulted. You understand what I'm saying? And I felt really disrespected a lot of times based upon remarks or assumptions, or I don't know what. Right. I didn't know, but I was experiencing that. And then when I read that part of of the book, where she was going into, just some of the just different social dynamics that we have within our movement at that particular time. I was like, look, thank you. Like, she was explaining it to breaking it down. Like, there you go. Now she made sense of it for me. So I just always remember that, like, always.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
And I just loved the way she just described her life in her autobiography. She's always someone who, reminded me that she, no matter what, she stayed focused on her mission and purpose. She had her child. She knows, we know that she has not been able to see her people unless her people come to her, and that, that's based on knowing that you're probably going to be monitored, because at any given time, Asada is still considered one of the on the most wanted list of this country. So one of my hopes and dreams is to one day meet this Queen Mother, in a righteous place, whether it be here in the U.S. or outside. But I congratulate her. I know that she has sacrificed much. Hers is the ultimate sacrifice, meaning that the very place that were fighting to liberate, you will never be able to come back to, and yet your name will forever be called in the annals of history for the people of New Africa. The people who applaud you, who revere you from afar, children who have never heard of you before will know your name. So we want you to live long life. I congratulate the government of Cuba, because they thought that after Fidel Castro passed, that his brother would allow the U.S. to come in, and I'm happy that the Communist Party in Cuba said no, hands off asylum. She was given a political asylum, and she will always have that in this country with us. And with that, I yield.
I would just add really quickly, Brother Prophecy. Big up. Okay, now this is the level of, you know how our creed says, I will work in concert with my brothers and sisters. Okay, well, they took working in concert with my brothers and sisters, the ultimate high love, Baba Aya love. Okay, broke her out of, got her to Cuba. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's what her need. You understand what I'm saying? We got to get her out, and them brothers got her out. Okay.
Yes.
I
and
love
others it. And our support organizations, for sure.
Yes.
Support organization.
Yes. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely a beautiful thing. I mean, really, when you look at the Asada Shakur, the story, I mean, this life, the story is just a made for movie. You just can see this being a dynamic movie, and you don't even have to exaggerate. I mean, this sister was broken out of prison on the run, escaped to Cuba, which is considered to be the evil Cuba, communist country of Cuba, according to the United States. But you hear her talk about Cuba, she, explains, hold on, I feel free here.
Thank you.
She gives an example of someone who lives outside of the control and the boundaries of the United States of America, and he realizes that, yeah, we've been lied to in here in this country. United States does not represent freedom. It takes freedom away. The very nature of this system is oppressive. It creates poverty. It creates crime. It creates disease. She articulates all of that. If you just have an opportunity, read a book, which is a outstanding book. It's called, I think, just Asada. And just look up. She has documentaries that she's created while she was in Cuba, and her analysis is on point, timely. Everything she said from 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago is still relevant right now to this day. So, I mean, she's a true warrior, true freedom fighter, and a true icon in the struggle of liberation for as new African people. And she'll go down in history like that, like you said,
Yes.
Mama Ayo, many decades and even centuries from now, people will have her name on their lips. Yeah, regardless of whether she comes back to the United States or not, she's already
That's right.
imprinted in the books of history.
Yes.
That's right.
And with that, I think we did it again. We right at an hour 45 minutes. So yeah, so I'm really gonna enjoy doing Women's History Month, because we have some true soldiers, mothers, goddesses that have been working on behalf of the liberation and freedom of new African people, and their names should always be highlighted and glorified, because they do not want to teach us about ourselves in history. So with that, y'all got anything y'all want to leave the people with?
Well,
yes, make sure we study. Just study and call some women warriors, some women, healers out. We have so many. Of course we have Black Moses. Of course we have Sojourner. Of course we have Fannie Lou. Of course we have Ida B. Of course we have so many that have lent their hands in this struggle. So unsung heroes, a lot of unsung female warrior heroes. Yes.
And I would just like to encourage the audience, men and women, brothers, treat the women in your life, whether it's your daughters, your sisters, your mothers, your wives, like gold. Treat them like pristine, okay? The utmost respect, the utmost love, and watch what happens. Watch how transformative you're going to activate the nurturer in her. It's a lot of brothers that's saying, sisters is too masculine, and just make her feel safe and protected. See what happens. You're going to act. These are some of the things that we can actively do. And sisters, we treat each other with love and respect. And we activate, that's another way of activating that divine feminine power. We're talking about Women's Month. If we want to see better women in our community, better new African women, these are the ways to activate better behavior. It's just, I promise you. I promise you.
Definitely. And with that, I'm just saying, join us again next week. We're gonna have another queen that we're gonna be highlighting. And matter of fact, we're gonna be talking about Frances Quest Welsing too. So that show's gonna be off the chain. Y'all definitely want to tune in for that. Yeah. So with that, I know Mama Ayo's already dropped off, but for Mama Ayo and Sama Art, I am Brother Prophecy. This is the New African Perspective. We will see y'all again next week, y'all. And tomorrow we will see the foundation of the nation at 10 o'clock. And I know y'all got a good subject already. So y'all make sure y'all tune into that and tune into all the shows. But until then, we're gonna leave y'all with our greeting and our freedom cry, and that is free the land. Free the land, free the land.
I am
Nation building. For many of us, the idea of nation building is too difficult, too complicated. It's impossible. But when you think about it, we're already nation builders. In fact, for the past 400 years, we've managed to build the most powerful nation on the planet. Unfortunately, this nation continues to disrespect, exploit, and oppress us. Here's a thought. Maybe we should focus on building our own nation.
Join us March 31st through April 2nd in Charleston, South Carolina, as the Republic of New Africa celebrates 55 years since the signing of our Declaration of Independence. Register on Eventbrite to attend in person and or online by typing in New African Nation Day 55. Also, find out more information on our website, pg-rna.com. Free the land by any means necessary.